welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. Today we are going to discuss the text of Waiting for Godot. I have previously made one introductory session on Waiting for Godot. So before you begin this video, I would suggest that you go back to that video and watch it. I'll give the link in the description below. So without further ado, let us begin. So let us first talk about the title. The title is Waiting for Godot, Tragicomedy in 2 Acts. The word tragicomedy was not used when the play was first produced. It was taken from Plutarch's Amphitryon. The characteristics of this genre is not very well defined. We can say that it is a combination of a tragedy as well as of a comedy. It has a happy ending and the characters are from different classes, and it mixes the characteristics of tragedy as well as of comedy. So we see that there is a freedom from rule when it comes to tragicomedy. Let us look at the play. Act 1. A country road, a tree, evening. So we see that the stage direction is very minimalistic, unlike the conventional plays. Perhaps Beckett here wants to convey the idea that this is no particular place. Minimalism is an art movement that begins in the post-Second World War Western society. The term minimalist often colloquially refers to anything or anyone that is stripped of its essentials. So we see that there is a tree. So when we associate a tree with a country, we have a sense of tranquility and leisure. But again, the idea of tree is loaded with biblical references. The tree of knowledge. So we see that there is a certain kind of binary, a duality, that it can be one thing and it also can be the opposite. Then we have the time, evening. So evening is a kind of transitory moment, a moment when things begin to transform. It can be the transformation from ignorance to knowledge or some kind of awareness. Tragedy is like that. You kind of come across to some awareness or anagnosis, or Joyce calls it an epiphany. So let us move on and see what happens. We have the introduction of the first character. Estragon, sitting on a low mount, is trying to take off his boot. He pulls at it with both hands, panting. He gives up, exhausted, rests, tries again. As before. Enters Vladimir. He is the second character. Estragon says, giving up again, nothing to be done. So we see that the first character, Estragon, he is engaged in a very petty work. He is not working in any way. He is trying to get rid of his discomfort, his boot that is stuck, but he cannot. So if we look at the word estragon, it refers to a certain kind of plant. So if we go to the etymology of the word, it comes from the Greek word drakon or serpent. This name particularly means somebody who is earthly or not so glamorous. This word is a French word. Then we have the second character, and the name of the second character is Vladimir. Vladimir is essentially a Slavic word. So it has 2 parts. Validity, that means rule, plus medu, that is great or famous. In a way, Vladimir is also associated with prince. So on one hand, we have a character whose name is a deglorified one, and here we have a glorified name. So we are to expect a binary, a prince and a tramp. So the question is, why does Beckett choose these names? So the first line Estragon speaks, that nothing can be done, this is a very significant one, and we'll see the reason as we progress with the play. So Vladimir, advancing with short stiff strides, legs wide apart, I am beginning to come round to that opinion. All my life I have tried to put it from me. Saying, Vladimir, be reasonable, you haven't yet tried everything. And I resumed the struggle. He broods, musing on the struggle, turning to Estragon. So there you are again. Estragon says, am I? Vladimir, I'm glad to see you back. I thought you were gone forever. Estragon says, me too. So we see that Vladimir enters, he kind of ignores Estragon and his struggles. And he is talking about his failure and how he always tried to motivate himself, and he always tried to act despite his own failures. We see that he gets excited when he sees Estragon, and he says that he is happy to see him again. And Estragon does not show the same kind of enthusiasm when he sees Vladimir. And he says, "Am I?" So it can be explained in some way. So if we stress on the word "am," so that can mean that am I here? Like he has not the idea that he exists here. And if we stress the word I, that means he does not have any personality. He does not even know that he has a personality. So he is confused about his identity as well as his position. So which one to understand, that is something we have to decide. So we see that Vladimir is quite excited seeing Estragon, and he says, "Together again at last, we'll have to celebrate this." "But how?" he reflects. "Get up till I embrace you." Estragon irritably, "Not now, not now." So we see that Vladimir greets Estragon like an old friend, and there is a kind of distancing when we see Estragon says, "Not now, not now." Now Vladimir goes on to make some small talk, and he asks, "May one inquire where His Highness spent the night?" Estragon, "In a ditch." Vladimir, "A ditch? Where?" Estragon, "Over there." Vladimir, "And they didn't beat you?" Estragon, "Beat me? Certainly they'd beat me." Vladimir, "The same lot as usual." Estragon, "The same. I don't know." Vladimir, "When I think of it, all these years, but for me, where would you be? You would be nothing more than a heap of bones at the present minute." "No, and what of it?" So we see that when Vladimir asks Estragon where he spent his night, Estragon is not very specific about giving information. He just simply says, "Over there." So he is completely dislocated, as we can say. Vladimir knows that Estragon spends his night in a ditch and often gets beaten. So from the very beginning, we see that Vladimir assumes a superior position when it comes to the mental prowess, so far as reasoning is concerned. And Estragon is a little effeminate and little childish. They both are of the same class, but they are not essentially the same. There is a basic difference. Now Vladimir goes on to say, "It's too much for one man." Pause cheerfully. "On the other hand, what's the good of losing heart now?" "That's what I say. We should have thought of it a million years ago, in the 90s. Estragon says, "Stop blathering and help me off with this bloody thing." Vladimir, hand in hand from the top of the Eiffel Tower. "Among the first. We were respectable in those days. Now it's too late. They wouldn't even let us up." Estragon tears at his boot. "What are you doing?" So Vladimir talks about some other time, during 1890s. When the world was different and now the world is different. He is referring to the emergence of modern consciousness. So Vladimir talks about a past when people like him would have access to everywhere, and now he won't be able to go in. He won't be allowed to enter. But Estragon is not bothered about the philosophy or the history lesson. He focuses on getting his boots off. And suddenly Vladimir notices and asks, "What are you doing?" So long, Vladimir has not even noticed whatever Estragon was doing. So this can be explained as a very modern kind of situation where every person has their own struggle, and the person next to you doesn't even have the understanding of the struggle you are facing. So we see that Vladimir notices Estragon's struggle with the boot too late because he lives in a different plane. He is in the sphere of thinking, and Estragon is more rooted in the sphere of physicality. So from the very beginning, we see that there is a particular disjoint in language. The purpose of language is to communicate. They both are using the same language, so they are supposed to communicate. But instead of communicating, they are not connected to each other. Here, language is used as an agent of division instead of being an agent of communication. They are distanced from each other when they are speaking, and they are together, they are in unison when they are silent. So they go on talking about this suffering, and Vladimir says that Estragon screams too much and hence his suffering is more visible. but he himself also has suffering. So he is talking about the mental suffering, and Estragon is talking about the physical suffering. So Estragon hurt is visible and Vladimir's suffering is actually not even visible, because apparently he is very fine looking. So the dialogue goes like this. Estragon says feebly, "Help me." Vladimir asks, "It hurts?" Estragon angrily, "Hurts? He wants to know if it hurts." Vladimir angrily, "No one ever suffers but you. I don't count. I would like to hear what you would say if you had what I have." Estragon asks, "It hurts?" Vladimir angrily, "Hurts? He wants to know if it hurts." So we see there is a repetition. Repetition is used constantly throughout the play. Repetition means nothing changes. The stasis is communicated through the repetition of words. So Estragon looks at Vladimir's trousers to find that it is not buttoned. So he says, "You might button it all the same." Vladimir stooping, "True." He buttons his fly. "Never neglect the little things of life." Estragon, "What do you expect? You always wait till the last moment." Vladimir musingly, "The last moment." He meditates. "Hope deferred maketh the something sick. Who said that?" So we see that Vladimir actually suffers from a kind of urological disease when he has trouble urinating. So this is a constant discomfort. And when Estragon uses this phrase "last moment," Vladimir changes this phrase into a philosophical one. This last moment is taken from the Bible. So we see that Vladimir is very good in speaking of what he is thinking. So he has a problem when it comes to remembering the right word. So the dialogues goes like this. "Sometimes I feel it coming all the same. Then I go all queer." He takes off his hat, peers inside it, feels about inside it, shakes it, puts it on again. "How shall I say?" Relieved. And at the same time, he searches for the word appalled, with emphasis. Appalled. He takes off his hat again, peers inside it. Funny. He knocks on the crown as though to dislodge the foreign body. Peers into it again, puts it on again. Nothing to be done. So we see that there is a repetitive action of taking the hat off, looking inside the hat, searching inside the hat, and then putting it back again. This action is repeated over and over again. So he says at the end the same thing with which Estragon began the play, and it is to say that the play has come to a full circle, reaching a kind of realization with which the play has started. So finally we see that Estragon is capable of taking his boot off, and he does the same thing. So we see that Estragon with a supreme effort succeeds in pulling off his boot. He peers inside it, feels about inside it, turns it upside down, shakes it, looks on the ground to see if anything has fallen out, finds nothing, feels inside it again, staring sightlessly before him. "Well?" Estragon says, "Nothing." Vladimir, "Show me." Estragon, "There is nothing to show." Vladimir, "Try and put it on again." Estragon, examining his foot, "I'll air it for a bit." So we see that Estragon does the repetitive action, whatever Vladimir has done with his hat. He pulls his boot off, searches inside it, shakes it, and then turns it upside down, sees if something has fallen, and that. So Vladimir is curious about what is inside in the boot, and Estragon tries to break here the repetitive action. How does he do that? He does not put the boots back again. The way Vladimir put the hat back again, Estragon does not put the boot back again, because he wants to break this monotony of doing the same thing over and over again. He breaks the monotony and says that he would like to air his foot. Then we see that Vladimir repeats his action with the hat. So here we see that the audience might feel that nothing is happening. So the audience might begin to feel frustrated that there is no story. But the question is, why would anyone look for a story in the play? Aristotle's idea of a tragedy does not involve a story, rather a mimesis. And mimesis is showing the action. So yes, there is action. That is the imitation of real. So the problem is the choosing of action. Which one is to be imitated? Which word is worth imitating? So the audience comes here loaded with expectations, and then they see these repetitive things. Vladimir is saying, there is a man all over for you, blaming on his boots the fault of his feet. So he takes off his hat again, peers inside it, feels about inside it, knocks on the ground, blows into it and pulls it back and puts it back again. This is getting alarming. Silence. Vladimir deep in thought, Estragon pulling at his toes. One of the thieves was saved. Pause. It's reasonable percentage. Pause. Go. Estragon says, what? Vladimir, suppose we repented? So we see that we are all like Estragon. We are blaming the boot instead of blaming the foot. So suddenly Vladimir talks about something different. He talks about repentance and refers to the gospel of two thieves. And Vladimir and Estragon, they call each other with the shortened names of Gogo and Didi. So there also we see repetitive syllables. So Vladimir talks about these random things and Estragon is confused. Estragon asks, repented what? Vladimir. He reflects. We wouldn't have to go into the details. Estragon. Our being born? Vladimir breaks into a hearty laugh, which he immediately stifles. His hand pressed to his pubic, his face contorted. Vladimir. One dare not even laugh anymore. Estragon. Dreadful privation. Vladimir. Merely smile. He smiles suddenly from year to year, keeps smiling, ceases at suddenly. It's not the same thing, nothing to be done. We see the repetition. Pause. Gogo. Estragon irritably. What is it? Vladimir. Did you ever read the Bible? Estragon. The Bible? He reflects. I must have taken a look at it. Vladimir. Do you remember the Gospels? Estragon. I remember the map of the Holy Land. Colored they were. Very pretty. The Dead Sea was pale blue. The very look of it made me thirsty. That's where we'll go. I used to say, that's where we'll go. For our honeymoon, we'll swim, we'll be happy. Vladimir, you should have been a poet. Estragon, I was. Gestures to his rise. Isn't it obvious? Then silence. So we see that Vladimir talks about these random things, asking about the Bible, and Estragon is thoroughly confused, but he is carefree and he does not have any conviction and does not want to think much. So Vladimir here mentions that he does not want to go in detail. So is there some sin he has committed which he is about to confess? We never know because he does not confess. So he has this disease, he cannot laugh out loud. And he smiles and stops smiling with the realization that smiling broad is not the same as laughing hard. We see Estragon is talking about looking at the pale blue of this Dead Sea made him feel thirsty. So this Dead Sea is actually very salty and that doesn't quench the thirst. So we see that Estragon is just like a child. And again, Vladimir points out to the fact that Estragon should have been a poet. Estragon gestures at his rags and says that he was one. There is one indication that poets does not make much money. So we see that Vladimir wants to make some small talks, but Estragon answers little bit and Vladimir brings up the story again. Which story? The story of the two thieves. So we see that there is a puzzle of communication. So communication is just like a cycle instead of a linear movement. The topics are repeated because they have already forgotten whatever they have already talked about. And we see that Estragon has a problem of understanding. He does not understand the meaning of a sentence if the sentence is too long. Vladimir again brings the story of the two thieves. And he says, yes, the two thieves. Do you remember the story? Estragon, as usual, he cannot remember things and he says, no. Vladimir, shall I tell it to you? Estragon is not at all interested. He says, no. Vladimir, it will pass the time. Pause. Two thieves crucified at the same time as our Savior. One, Estragon says, our what? Vladimir, our Savior. Two thieves, One is supposed to have been saved, and the other, he searches for the contrary of saved, damned. Estragon, saved from what? Vladimir, hell. Estragon says that I'm going, but he does not move. Vladimir continues with the story, and yet, pause, how is it that of the four evangelists only one speaks of a thief being saved? The four of them were there, only one speaks of a thief being saved. Pause. Come on, Google, return the ball. Can't you once in a while? Estragon with exaggerated enthusiasm. I find this really most extraordinary interesting. Vladimir continues. One out of four. Of the other three, two don't mention any thieves at all, and the third says that the both of them abused him. Estragon. Who? Vladimir. What? Estragon. What's all this about? Abused who? Vladimir. The savior. Estragon. Why? Vladimir. Because he wouldn't save them. Estragon. From hell. Vladimir. Imbecile, from death. Estragon. I thought you said hell. Vladimir. From death. Estragon. Well, what of it? Vladimir. Then the two of them must have been damned. Estragon. And why not? Vladimir. But one of the four says that one of the two was saved. Estragon. Well, they don't agree, and that's all there is to it. Vladimir. But all four were there, and only one speaks of a thief being saved. Why believe him rather than the others? Estragon. Who believes him? Vladimir. Everybody. It's the only version they know. Estragon. People are bloody ignorant apes. So Vladimir goes on to tell the story that there were four evangelists who were present during the time of crucifixion of Christ, and only one of them tells the story of two thieves and one being saved, and another one talks about both the thieves being damned. The other two did not even mention the thieves. So these four evangelists were Mark, Matthew, Luke and John. They are called the evangelists. The award meaning people who proclaim good news, because their books aim to convey the good news, the Gospels. So Vladimir questions that if the four were present there witnessing the incident, how come only one about them talks about one thief being saved? So we here can ask why Vladimir is so obsessed about the story. Is it that Vladimir thinks that Vladimir and Estragon, there are two people and they are equivalent of the two thieves? So in Bible it is said that we all are sinful by birth. Still we all have the hope of reaching heaven, but there is no guarantee. There is 50% chance of reaching heaven. So you should not hope too much or be in despair too much. So Vladimir wants communication and response here. A response that he is the one who will be saved. So here at this point we also get confused about what Vladimir is talking. So Vladimir and Estragon are talking about one thief being saved, one thief being damned in the context of the story, which is very vague, and people have the tendency to believe in the narrative which more people say or talk about. So here out of four, two say that nothing happened, so people should believe that nothing happened, but people chose to believe that one thief was saved. People don't believe this particular person not because the other people were ignorant. People believe this particular person because otherwise there is no hope, and hope is equal to meaning. So we can see what Estragon does. Estragon gets up and gazes around and then tries to look at where he is, and he makes a comment about the place they are in. He says, charming spot. He turns, advances to the front, halls facing auditorium. Inspiring prospects. He turns to Vladimir. Let's go. Vladimir. We can't. Estragon. Why not? Vladimir. We are waiting for Godot. Estragon. Despairingly. Ah, you are sure it was here? Vladimir. What? Estragon. That we were to wait? Vladimir. He stayed by the tree. They look at the tree. Do you see any others? Estragon. What is it? Vladimir. I don't know. A willow. Estragon. Where are the leaves? Vladimir. It must be dead. Estragon. No more weeping. Vladimir. Or perhaps it's not the season. Estragon. Look to me more like a bush. Vladimir. A shrub. Estragon. A bush. Vladimir. Play a place? Estragon. He should be here. Vladimir. He didn't say for sure he would come. Estragon. And if he doesn't come? Vladimir. Will come back tomorrow? Estragon. And then the day after tomorrow? Vladimir. Possibly. Estragon. And so on. Vladimir. The point is, Estragon, until he comes. We see that these two people cannot go anywhere because they are waiting for Godot. And Vladimir says that, and Estragon suddenly says, as if he did not have the idea what they were doing there so long. So Estragon possibly even does not remember that he is waiting here because he is waiting for Godot. So Vladimir always supplies him with intelligence, logicality, reason, as well as with purpose. So they talk about the tree and they ask around what kind of tree that is, and that is a willow. And willows have like a drooped down leaves, as if the tree is weeping. So usually a plant is known by its leaves. But in this case, they call this plant a willow, but that plant doesn't have any leaf. So how do they call this plant a willow? Or it could be the tree is dead, that is why it doesn't have any leaves, so that is why it is no longer weeping. So there is this indication that after death we go beyond laughing and crying. So when they start calling the tree a bush or a shrub, the audience begins to question about their own idea of the world. So their knowledge, the knowledge of these two people are not even dependable. So the audience begins to have doubt even about Godot. So we see after that the uncertainty starts. They are completing each other's lines and they realize that they are talking about an infinite wait here. Like tomorrow, possibly day after tomorrow, like that. There is this indication of waiting for this infinity, and Vladimir does not have any answer. And they ask that whether it is this place they were supposed to wait, and they try to confirm that yes, by the tree. So we can ask this question that how do we recognize a place? Obviously by remembering. So what are the things we need on the stage for remembering? The use of props. But in this play, Beckett doesn't use any prop other than this tree which is dead and their boots and hat. And they are even not sure whether it is a tree. So this memory, that is not allowed in any form, and no memory also gets the time to form, and there is no formality, and there is no reception of experience. So we see that Beckett's stage is completely stripped off of all the props, and when the next act begins, we don't even understand, is it the same place, is it the same stage, is it the same setting as the previous one? That's the problem. So after that, we see that they talk about time. Estragon says, we came here yesterday. Vladimir, no, there you are mistaken. Estragon, what did we do yesterday? Vladimir, what did we do yesterday? Estragon, yes. Vladimir, why? Angrily, nothing is certain when you are about. Estragon, in my opinion, we were here. Vladimir, looking around, you recognize this place? Estragon, I don't say that. Vladimir, well, Estragon, that makes no difference. Vladimir, all the same, the tree. Turning towards the auditorium, that bog. Estragon, are you sure it was this evening? Vladimir, what? Estragon, that we were to wait? Vladimir, he said Saturday. Pause, I think. Estragon, you think? Vladimir, I must have made a note of it. He fumbles in his pocket, bursting with a miscellaneous rubbish. Estragon, very insidious. But what Saturday? And is it Saturday? Is it not rather Sunday? Pause. Or Monday? Or Friday? Vladimir looking wildly about him, as though the date was inscribed in the landscape. It's not possible. Estragon, or Thursday? Vladimir, What will we do, Estragon? If he came yesterday and we weren't here, you may be sure he won't come again today. Vladimir, but you say we were here yesterday. Estragon, I may be mistaken. Let's stop talking for a minute. Do you mind? We see that Estragon starts playing with the concept of time. And there, these two people are losing the track of time. And adding to our confusion, he is not sure whether it is even Saturday. So they continue like this, questioning each other. So then Estragon talks about parting from each other. And he wants to go away from Vladimir. And after a little exchange, we see that he is upset. And Estragon comes and wants an embrace. This is also a repeated action. Remember, at the very beginning, Vladimir offers that embrace to Estragon, where Estragon said, "Not now, not now." Estragon, step forward. You are angry. Silence, step forward. Forgive me. Come, Didi. Give me your hand. Vladimir half turns. Embrace me. Vladimir stiffens. Don't be stubborn. Vladimir softens. They embrace. So this is another repetitive action, as if this play has come to the full circle once more. Hello everyone. As I was recording the video, I have realized that this video is too long. So I am breaking the video in a few segments. So the next segment is coming in the next video. So till then, study hard and stay tuned. Thank you. Bye-bye.